It's a civic duty. Let's register on the electoral list. This is a message from Equinoxe Television.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. First, our top stories. Civil society actors have lambasted the arrest and incommunicado detention of activist Jobaru Yerima. These actors say arrest and detention is politically motivated and orchestrated by fraudulent state officials repeatedly exposed by activists. After denying responsibility for his disappearance, security officials have vowed to pressure amidst media confirmation that he was being held at the dreaded State Defense Secretariat, despite denial by the government of Cameroon of involvement in crackdowns against the opposition and critical voices. Cases as such continue to multiply. And now to something else. Fear spreads in immigrant communities as raids and deportations escalate. Trump's aggressive deportation agenda on undocumented immigrants, including Cameroonians, has instilled an atmosphere of fear in the hearts of their family members back home. Those are top stories. Stay with us for greater details. Thank you so much for staying with Equinoxe Television. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. Human rights organizations based in Yaoundé have urged the government to release a certain CJ Kamgang Dieudonné, father of an alleged rapist known as CJ Kamgang Dieudonné, who was arrested overnight by the military intelligence unit known as SEMIL after the adopted son of CJ Kamgang Dieudonné raped 3 teenagers. For the rights organization, what officers of SEMIL did won't bring forth justice to the victims. We have details with Smart Jikan Gabriel.
Another rape case engulfs a family in Yaoundé. I am the father of the children, aged 5, 7 and 9 years, respectively, who were sexually assaulted by the adopted son of Mr. CJ. The father of the kids who were sexually assaulted accused other people in the family, saying they are trying to hide the alleged rapist. Mr. CJ has to tell us where he is hiding his adopted son. Why does he not want the child to speak out? According to witness account, CJ Kamgang Dieudonné, who is the adoptive father of the alleged rapist, was whisked out of his house by SEMIL officials on the orders of the father of the kids whose children were raped. This provoked the outing of officials from Nous, droit, Cameroon. There are 4 military officers who used state resources to resolve private issues. It is not accepted for one to use state infrastructure to arrest an individual to an unknown destination without any document covering them.
De faire enlever par les soldats camerounais un citoyen.
For Nouveau Droit de l'Homme Cameroon, their intervention is in line with the actions taken by SEMIL officials. A complaint has already been dropped at the Ministry of Defense. For the rape incident, the human rights organ has given the family an advice.
Une situation de viol est un crime.
Rape is a crime and a formal complaint is supposed to be written and dropped at the Gendarmerie Brigade for onward investigations. A position motioned by the Mandela Center International, another human rights organization, which is calling on the immediate release of CJ Kamgang Dieudonné. For them, his incarceration will not bring justice to the current incident.
Now we talk something else. Yerima Jobaru, the whistleblower who went missing in the Adamawa region, clocks 36 days behind bars at the State Defense Secretariat in Yaoundé, known as said the whistleblower was kidnapped at his residence in Gaoundéré shortly after releasing a video of a man dressed in CPDM attire in possession of hundreds of national identity cards. Civil society actors have lambasted the arrest of this whistleblower while calling on the government to release him as fast as possible. We have details in this report compiled by Fomi Armstrong Sander.
30 days of an intense search for family members of Gaoundéré-based activist Jubairo Abasi to locate and confirm that he is being detained at the State Defense Secretariat said in the nation's political capital city, Yaoundé. A discovery that speaks volume on the motivation behind the arrest and detention of the young activist.
Simplement parce qu'il aurait manifesté ou dénoncé.
Simon Pierre Essome says the Jubairo persecution is politically motivated, orchestrated by fraudulent political elites, exposed by Jubairo severally in his many videos.
Toute une coloration purement politique au regard des éléments.
His view is supported by Dr. Aristide Monod, who says Jubairo was held incommunicado despite repeated requests from his family to the Directorate General of National Security to know his whereabouts. Besides the questionable attitude of the DGSN, Aristide Monod also revealed that security officials in the Adama region refused ever seeing nor knowing the man Jubairo, only for his family to discover that he was picked up by security officials in Gaoundéré and driven to Garabulai in the East region, where he was detained for the night before being whisked off to Yaoundé, today held at the dreaded State Defense Secretariat, said.
Il a été conduit immédiatement à Yaoundé, détenu à la DGRE.
The civil society sees a lack of will on the part of administrative and security officials to release information on the arrest and detention of Jubairo.
La famille a été alertée par les médias classiques.
Aristide Monod recalls that his discovery and confirmation at the State Defense Secretariat was alerted by a local newspaper, Le du Sahel. Jubairo was picked up at the Bali quarters in Gaoundéré in the Adama region on December 24, 2024, then weeks and detained in Yaoundé incommunicado for over 30 days.
Now we talk politics following complaints by a civil society actor known as Abdurrahman Hamadou Baba over the delay in the publication of a list of prospective voters by the elections governing body Electoral. Responding to his question, the president of the Electoral Council, Eno Abrahams Egbe, explains that the delay is due to the destruction of a Electoral official site by some pirates. He assures him that the list will be published anytime soonest. Details with Anabila.
As the 2025 presidential election approaches, political parties as well as the civil society have been on the guard to ensure that the registration process is strictly respected. One of the preoccupations of opposition political parties and the civil society actors has been the publication of the entire list of those who have already registered for the upcoming election. Electoral, according to them, has been reluctant, especially as there are allegations of the elections governing body siding with the ruling party. One of those raising serious concerns is Abdurrahman Hamadou Baba, who in a missive to the president of the Electoral Council complained of the non-publication of a national electoral list in which will figure the complete information of prospective voters and which is as well the only document from which any mistake can be recognized and corrected. According to Abdurrahman, that there is a blatant violation of the electoral law by Elections Cameroon itself. Less than a week after his complaints, Elecam reacts. In a response to Abdurrahman's worry, the president of the Electoral Council assures Abdurrahman that his preoccupation has been considered. Eno Abrahams Egbe explains that the Elecam official site was pirated and destroyed, but repair works are almost complete. Hence, the compilation of personal information of each prospective voter will be verified and published soonest. Eno Abrahams Egbe adds that other preoccupations will be looked into when the Electoral Council sits. Elecam, he explains further, is open to pacific discussions with all actors for a patriotic, peaceful, credible and transparent electoral process. To note that the CRM political party of Professor Maurice Kamto had also expressed the problem of delay in the publication of the list of prospective voters by Elecam. They also say it is a violation of what the Electoral Code stipulates.
Staff Lady Annabila reporting there. Governors from 4 different African countries comprising of Niger, Chad, Cameroon and Nigeria are presently in Maiduguri, Borno State in Nigeria for a 3-day meeting to discuss security challenges that they are currently facing on the Lake Chad Basin. They will also be talking about food insecurity and how to possibly end the continuous attacks of terrorist groups in that region. Malaglary takes us to the Federal Republic of Nigeria in her report.
The continuous activities of the Boko Haram terrorist group in the northern parts of Cameroon and in some parts of Nigeria and pressing challenges facing the Lake Chad Basin are the major points of discussion at the ongoing meeting of the 5th edition of the Lake Chad Basin Governors Forum.
And we know what they are. They are food security, there are development obstacles, the disarmament, demobilization and reintegration from armed groups, the crucial role of civil society, humanitarian and security and those trends, and crafting a cohesive regional strategy.
The meeting is taking place at Muhammadu Indimi International Learning Center in the Maiduguri, Borno State in Nigeria, bringing together governors from 4 countries, Cameroon, Chad, Niger and Nigeria, to come up with sustainable solutions to the insecurity faced by the region. Far North Governor Mijiawa Bakari, representing Cameroon, says rehabilitation centers will be created as one of the strategies.
So we think that we need to accompany those children in order to avoid that they will go right to the forest Sambisa and become the Boko Haram.
The governor of the Borno State, on his part, presents some efforts made so far to curb the rising insecurity in Nigeria.
Over the years, Borno State has prioritized agricultural transformation as a key pillar of our recovery strategy. With a focus on irrigation systems, resilience crop production, and support for smallholder farmers, we have made significant strides in ensuring food security for our people.
The meeting runs from the 28th to the 30th of January 2025 under the theme Rebuilding Lake Chad Basin, Consolidating Gains, Commitment to Peace, Cross-Border Cooperation, Security and Sustainable Development for a Resilient Community.
And away from that, 1,736 Cameroonians will be expelled from the United States of America due to Donald Trump's executive order. In the context of diplomatic tensions and migration restrictions, this decision, which is part of stricter migration policy, raised concerns among Cameroonian diaspora about the future of those who will be deported. Details with our reporter, Siri Chakutu.
Amid diplomatic tensions and migration restrictions, 1,736 Cameroonians are at risk of being expelled from the United States following an executive order signed by President Donald Trump. This executive order is aimed at strengthening immigration controls and expelling nationals from certain countries deemed at risk. Directly affects thousands of Cameroonians living in the United States, among them students, workers and entire families who have built their lives on American soil.
The general atmosphere here after Trump's executive orders is that of fear and panic. There's a lot of uncertainty within most of the immigrant communities because definitely it is a blanket executive order targeting immigration.
Well, it is rumored that some few Cameroonians were also arrested a few days ago and taken into a detention center. I'm sure that has to do with the undocumented ones too, but for now, no deportation of any Cameroonian has taken place.
To some analysts, for these 1,736 Cameroonians, expulsion means a forced return to a country where economic opportunities are limited and unemployment remains high. This situation plunges many families into uncertainty and distress.
There were people in some of these detention centers that were already awaiting deportation. This operation has plunged many people into fear and panic.
As far as the Cameroonian community is concerned, it's also true because it's something you feel in the community. Anybody want to get closer to his lawyer to know what legal procedure.
The move Part of the stricter migration policy has sparked concern among the Cameroonian diaspora. According to them, this measure used by President Donald Trump is based on security arguments, citing the need to protect the United States from potential threats.
Remember, the Biden administration granted Cameroon TPS, or temporal protected status, because of the crisis or the war in the English-speaking region. So those who have this status may not be renewed. We are watching on this one. This will really tell us the direction in which this is going with the Cameroonians. And then executive order guaranteeing the state's protection against invasion. This also declares an ongoing invasion of migrants at the southern borders, which is what really caused a lot of this whole uproar and the immigration executive orders by Trump.
This decision, which affects lives and families, underlines the need for constructive dialogue between nations and a more human approach to immigration. For the Cameroonians concerned, the time has come for resilience and solidarity.
Still in the United States of America, President Donald Trump's decision to suspend U.S. foreign aid globally, with exceptions of Israel and Egypt, has raised concerns about its impact on African countries that heavily rely on the USA for humanitarian assistance. Ese Luciliango reports on the impact of the 90-day review aid program.
Has been moving.
U.S. President Donald Trump has enacted an executive order that temporarily suspends all U.S. foreign assistance programs for a period of 90 days, pending evaluations to ensure they align with his administration's policy goals. The immediate impact of this order, issued on Monday, is unclear, as many programs have already been funded by Congress and are required to utilize those funds. He has long criticized foreign aid, despite the fact that it accounts for 1% of the federal budget, except in unusual situations like the extensive military aid provided to Ukraine. Trump has been particularly vocal about the aid sent to Ukraine to strengthen its defense against Russian aggression. The United Nations Secretary General has expressed concern over Trump's decision to pause foreign assistance from the United States as his administration promotes its America First agenda. During a press briefing on Monday, the spokesperson for Antonio Guterres remarked that the Secretary General noted a policy change with concern. In December 2024, the UN and its humanitarian partners called for $7.6 billion in funding for 2025 to assist 35 million individuals affected by crises in West and Central Africa. Trump's suspension of the U.S. foreign aid globally, with the exemption of Israel and Egypt, has raised alarm regarding its potential effects on African nations that heavily rely on humanitarian assistance. This action, part of the America First agenda, includes a 90-day review of international aid programs to evaluate their effectiveness. Lastly, countries like South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, and Ethiopia, which are already facing crises such as famine, conflict, climate change, and economic instability, are particularly vulnerable to losing this essential support.
That's it for this first part of the news. Talking Point is up next. My guest tonight is an immigration law expert based in the New York City, that is in the United States of America. He's known as ANENEBA Innocent AKUFOR. Good evening. It's a pleasure to have you on Talking Point tonight. We have seen on the news and other social media platforms people being deported from the United States of America back to their home countries. What's the state of mind of those currently living in the U.S. illegally at the moment?
Yeah, the state of mind of those currently living in the United States unlawfully or illegally, it's extremely daunting, it's painful, and somehow psychologically it treats you so poorly. But we have to make that distinction between who is unlawfully present and who is illegally present in the United States. So if you were at some point not admitted or paroled into the United States, or you were admitted through a visa into the United States, and you were given, let's say, 6 months, and after 6 months, you never left the United States, you stayed. Now you become unlawfully present. You become illegally present in the United States. So that's the main distinction. So there are other people who have been issued final removal orders from Immigration Court or the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, and they just never left the United States. They are unlawfully present in the United States. They are illegal in the United States. Or let's say you came through the border, you walked through the border into the United States, and that's what happened to you. You went through the court system and went through the due process, and your case was denied. So now you never left the United States. You were never deported, but issued a removal order by an immigration judge. So at that moment, you're unlawfully present in the United States. I mean, it's psychologically very challenging to live in an environment where you know every little thing that you do might lead you into the, get you into the dragnets of the law, and you are put in immigration proceedings, and you might be sent back to your home country. So it's very challenging to think about the fact, you live in fear, perpetual fear, because let's say you are in a traffic accident and you're in a country where you're in a county where they enforce immigration detainers. If you are taken into a custody, but into a sheriff's office, what they do is they run your profile, and if that profile hits that mark where they say, okay, this person is not supposed to be here, what they do is they call Immigration and Custom Enforcement, and when they come in, they will take you into removal proceedings, process you, and eventually send back to your country. So it's extremely difficult, again, considering the current environment in the United States.
Barrister, what about refugees? Are they concerned with the deportation exercise? Here I want us to focus on some of the victims of the Anglophone crisis who are currently seeking asylum in the United States. Should they equally be worried about what's happening now in the U.S.?
Yes, about the refugees and the Anglophone crisis, not just the Anglophone crisis, but general crisis in the country also. I think, sometimes we conflate the two. If you're fleeing from a natural disaster, if you're fleeing from persecution, a war, or some other pressure from your home country, the Refugee Convention defines you as that person who is now able to leave their country and move to another place for safety because of all those pressures in the country. But in the technical sense of the word, a refugee, let's say you leave Cameroon, for example. Let's use that example because that's what you cited in your question. Let's say you leave Cameroon, you move to another country, let's say Nigeria. Now you are registered under the United Nations Refugees, resettlement area there. And they will vet you, look at your security clearance at some point. Now, if you pass that bar, then now you are a refugee in that country, and they might resettle you in another country, let's say in Europe or in the United States. That's a refugee. If you come, let's say you walk across the border through the southern part of the United States into the United States, and now technically you are a refugee, but you are claiming something under the convention, which is called asylum. So when you seek asylum, or you're technically a refugee, but the relief is quite different. Because when a refugee comes to the United States through the United Nations system, you're automatically admitted as a permanent resident. But if you come in as an asylee, you have to go through the process, either through the immigration courts or through USCIS, depending on how you enter the United States, before you can gain a permanent status here in the United States. So again, it's extremely difficult. I know the crisis back home, it's something that it's challenging. People are fleeing for one reason or the other, but if they find themselves in one of these areas, they can seek solution or seek assistance from whichever government they are resident at. Let's say you're in Europe or you're in the United States, you can always seek protection, and they should willingly give it to you, because most of these countries, they're signatories of all the refugee conventions and all its protocols.
What legal advice do you have for those living in the United States illegally? How can they go about the situation? Is there a way of turning things around for them at this point in time?
Yeah, for those living in the United States illegally, as I said before in our prior answer, it just depends. If you don't have a removal order, a prior removal order against you, because that's what Mr. Trump is actually enforcing. Mostly those people who they have a criminal record, and those who had been issued final removal orders in an immigration court or through the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. So if you find yourselves in one of those categories, those are your enforcement. You are an enforcement priority, and they can come after you. So if they catch their dragnet and you fall within that circle, you will be deported, especially you had gone through the due process to finality and there is a closure on your case. You've done all your appeals, either to the Board of Immigration Appeals or to U.S. circuit courts. You've gone through all that due process, and they end up determining that you don't have a real case to qualify as an asylee. What they do is they issue that final order. And if you find yourself, then you're as an illegal immigrant in the United States, it's very possible that you are an enforcement priority, and when there is a detainer on you, or even a non-detainer, you will be removed back to your home country. So even if, let's say, you are in a shopping center or you are at church, because one of the executive orders that Mr. Trump, President Trump passed, it actually revokes the sensitive areas where ICE, which is Immigration and Custom Enforcement, is not supposed to go, like churches, hospitals, schools, shopping centers that are, strictly owned by minorities. They're not supposed to go there, but this executive order has revoked, they've rescinded that act, and now they can go after you anywhere that you are. Even at the hospital, they can go after you. So it's really challenging living as, illegally in the United States, because at any moment that nail can be knocked and you will be gone. It's very
Now let's look at another aspect. What are the global impacts of the deportation policy, let's say, on other African countries, and also bilateral ties as far as this massive deportation exercise is concerned?
Yes, about the global impact on deportation. Yeah, you can take it both ways. Let's say you have someone here in the United States or any other country that they're working and sending remittances back home to help their families back home. If you deport that person, automatically there is destitution on the other side. But if you look at it on this other side also, what most of them are arguing is that when these migrants come or illegal immigrants enter the United States, they offer themselves at a very, very low bargaining edge, and they take jobs that are meant for other people here in the United States. That's their argument. So it will lead to unemployment here in the United States while it's fueling a better life overseas where these remittances are going. It leads to lower wages here in the United States because a non-immigrant who is here who just wants to pay rent or buy food and put on the table, what you will do is whatever job they give you, you will take it. Whatever price the price tag, you will take it, and the wage that they pay you, it goes, you take it. It reduces the gross domestic product in the country where, let's say in the United States, again, because you work and you pay taxes, and if the tax bracket where you are put into is extremely low or you don't pay that much taxes, it leads to the GDP that the gross domestic product would be reduced in that place. But again, one of the greatest impact about this deportation is the separation of families. Let's say you're here in the United States, you entered, and you overstayed your visa, or you actually did not have a visa when you entered the United States, and you were married, you have children, and those children now, they're U.S. citizens, and if you are removed, they don't remove those children, they are here. They would be placed in foster care or within other family members, but you are gone. So that's a family that you've separated. Those children will live in trauma. Even you yourself living with your children is extremely difficult. So those are some of the things that this deportation actually does to families and within the community itself.
Barrister ANENEBA Innocent AKUFOR, immigration law expert, New York, United States of America. Thank you so much for your time. And that's it for today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for always staying keen to programs on Equinoxe Television. See you tomorrow, same time, God willing. Bye-bye for now.